I'm Ian, and this is Frank.
Hello, Ian.
He was born in 1926 and lived through the Great Depression when he was a boy. What are some of your memories of the Great Depression?
Well, my memories are mostly of my mother and dad struggling, trying to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table and trying to find work. And some of the stories would be that before 1929 there was often laughter in the home and money when the father would cash his check and he would count his money at the kitchen table and how happy he was. And then when he was out of work, the happiness in the kitchen and the other areas of our lives seemed to disappear. And there was a lot of worry, and sometimes there was infighting between the mother and the father, both trying the best. And I remember that sometimes a man would come to the door and ask for food, and my mother would tell him to go to the backyard. And while he was making his way to the back porch, he would fix himself a sandwich, maybe a slice of bologna and a slice of bread. She'd put it in a white plate and she'd set it on the floor. She didn't want to invite him into the house, and then he'd be out there eating, and then he would be very nice, polite, and he'd eat his sandwich and he'd leave, and before he left he thanked her. I remember that story. I remember my father trying to find work. He'd walk the streets going into retail stores and asking if they needed any work. He finally found a job helped cleaning clothes, and he'd come home and he'd smell from all those chemicals. And one day he came home very shaken because he volunteered to work on some electrical fixtures. He wasn't prepared for that, but he said he knew how to do it, and it knocked him down to the floor. But he wasn't fired, but he did come home all shaken. And I remember when he finally got a job at Fisher Body in Cleveland, Ohio, and he was supposed to catch these sheets of metal as it came off the stamping machines, and he got tired or lost his concentration, and the metal slipped, cut his toes, and they took him to the office and bandaged his toes, and then they looked over to one side and said, "Well, what did you do show up today? You were laid off yesterday." They didn't want to take any responsibility, so they got rid of anybody that couldn't work the next day. And I remember people helping us with things around that needed to be fixed, and my dad would exchange his labor and services and help other people. So they just kept going more and more to help each other.
How old were you then?
I was 3 plus years old when it started, and then it continued off and on until 1939, 1940. Went from late 1929 to late 1939. World War I came along, World War II came along, and almost everybody that could work was employed.
Are there any things about today's recession that frightens you about another depression?
Well, when you watch television, which we didn't have years ago, didn't even have radio to any great extent, and we're watching all the news day after day, and it's very frightening, but we really don't notice it on the streets so much, except there is less traffic, and the stores are not as busy, and the statistics are being drummed into us every day. 60% layoff, 70% layoff, companies moving out of the country. It's very frightening, and we haven't reached the depth of a depression yet.
Anything else you'd like to say about the Great Depression?
Well, no, I could talk forever about the Great Depression.
Thank you for watching, and we wish you all the best.
Happy holidays.